Hi, I'm John Perry, and I'm the designer of Time Barons, along with my co-designer Derek Yu. And today I'm going to be showing you how to play. Now, Time Barons is a card battle game for 2 to 4 players that plays in about 30 minutes. In this game, you control a Time Baron. A Time Baron is a shadowy, immortal being that stands behind the scenes of history, manipulating people and institutions, all in a quest to defeat the other Time Barons. The way you win this game, have more followers than your opponent. Okay, so first you're going to locate these green starting sites. Some of them are called Homeland, some of them are called Capital. Which one you use depends on the number of players. I'm going to set up a 2-player game, which means I'm going to just use Homelands. You're going to give 1 to each player. Next, you're going to locate these wooden discs. These represent your followers, and each player is going to start with 10 on their homeland. These followers are extremely important because if you lose all your followers, you lose the game. Next, you're going to locate these gameplay cards. On your first game, you're probably going to want to use the core set, which is marked by this diamond in the lower left. Sort the gameplay cards by color into 4 face-down draw stacks. 1 representing the Middle Ages, 1 representing a roughly industrial time period, 1 representing the modern era, and finally 1 representing the future. At the beginning of the game, both players are still at the medieval level of technology, which means you're going to use these tokens to mark that by putting them next to the level 1 stack. In addition, each player is going to begin with a hand of 5 level 1 Middle Ages cards. Next, you'll want to make sure the other tokens are close at hand. I like to just use the box for this. Finally, to determine first player, look at the bottom of the Homeland card, and that'll tell you who should go first. And now, if you've completed all those steps, you are ready to begin the game. Okay, so players are going to take turns, and on each turn you're going to get 3 action points to spend. The only exception is if it's the very first turn of the game and you're the first player, then you only get 2 action points. But standard on most turns is 3. You can spend 1 action point to draw 1 card on a level that you are on or a level lower. Right now I can draw from level 1. But if I was on level 2, I could choose to draw from either level 2 or level 1 for 1 action per card. You also spend actions to play cards. For example, this catapult costs 2 actions to put into play. You can spend 1 action to gain 1 new follower from the general supply and add it to any site you have in play. You can also spend an action point to do what's called a relocate. When you relocate, you can move your followers to whatever new arrangement you would rather have. And you can move as many followers as you want by spending only 1 action. The 5th and final type of action is an upgrade action. It costs you 2 actions to move up to level 2, 3 actions to move up to level 3, and 4 actions to move up to level 4. And if you're wondering, how do I get to level 4 when I only have 3 actions a turn? Well, the answer is that there are cards in the deck that will give you extra actions. Next, let's talk about the different types of cards. The first type of card is a site. Sites are cards like this church or this railroad. They have a house symbol in the top right to show that they're a site. Once sites are played, they stay in play, like so, and followers can be placed on them and relocated between them. Sites also have an integrity in the lower right, shown on this shield. The integrity is kind of like the site's health, meaning if the site were to take 3 damage, marked by these damage counters, then this particular site would be destroyed along with any followers on it. The second type of card is an event. An event is marked with a star shape in the top right. And events are single-use cards, so once you pay the action cost and do what the event says, then the event gets discarded. A third type of card is called an attachment with a symbol like this on it. And attachments are actually placed on sites like so. And they're going to change that site somehow. Some attachments are good, like this fortify. Other attachments might be bad, and you would play them on your opponent's sites. The fourth and final type of card is a reaction. You'll notice reactions don't have a cost. That's because they can be played during your opponent's turn. They'll have some trigger that tells you when they can be played. For example, this one can be played when one of your sites is damaged. And reactions act like events in that they go to the discard pile once you play them. Now that you understand the types of cards, we need to discuss how damage works. A lot of cards will reference damage, like this one here. And when damage is done, it's always done to a site. And two things will happen to that site as a result. So if I play this siege on this railroad, first, 2 followers will be killed as a result of that damage. And second, 2 damage counters will be placed on that railroad, which means that the railroad itself is closer to being discarded. Now previously we talked about how you can spend your actions on your turn, but there's one more important thing you can do on your turn, and that is activate site abilities. So for example, this Doomsday Laser here has an ability at the bottom. Abilities have requirements. For example, this ability has 3 dots on it, which means it requires a minimum of 3 followers on that site in order to activate that ability. This ability also requires 2 actions. So if you have 3 followers and you spend 2 actions, then you can perform the ability on your turn. Let's look at another example. This library has 2 abilities. The first one requires 3 followers. The second one requires 5 followers and spending 1 action. Now, something to keep in mind is that abilities are somewhat restricted. You can only operate an ability once per turn, and the other restriction is that in cases where the site has 2 abilities, like this one, you can only pick 1 to activate per turn. So in this case, if I activate the bottom ability, I cannot later activate the first ability until I wait a turn. This mission, you'll see, has a free ability on it. This doesn't require any followers or actions, but it still follows that rule, which says that you can only activate it once per turn. And of course, if I activate this top ability, I wouldn't be able to activate the bottom. This hospital has a special kind of ability. You'll see this infinity symbol here means that this is an infinite ability. And an infinite ability breaks all of those restrictions I just said. Infinite abilities can be activated as many times as you want. They can be activated during an opponent's turn even, but the conditions on the infinite ability have to be met. So for example, this one can only be activated after some of your followers are killed. At this point, the only thing left to talk about is how do you win? Earlier I mentioned that if you lose all your followers, you lose the game. So one way to win is to simply wipe out your opponent's last few followers. This is called a total victory. But the other way to win is that it's possible that over the course of the game, 3 out of 4 draw stacks will run out. And at that point the game ends, and whoever has more followers wins what's called a majority victory. So now you know how to play Time Barons. You're still probably going to want to consult the rulebook for any finer, more detail-oriented questions that come up, and you're also going to want to consult the rulebook if you decide to play multiplayer, since there are a few extra rules I didn't go over that are covered in the multiplayer section in the back of the book.